From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven Erlandson, takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Well, hello! Look at you! We are in your ear and you cleaned your ears this week. There's no wax in here at all. Wow, this is great. Nice to be echoing in your brain. There's like no room in here because there's so much brainage. It's the best. I love your head. I love you. We love you. This is the Badass Counseling Show podcast, and you have reached the lightning round of our fine mess. Whether you are tuning in from New Brunswick or Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, it's great to have you here. We love our listeners, we love our show, and we love helping folks out in whatever way we can. My name is Sven Erlandson. I am the host of the Badass Counseling Show. I'm joined in studio by KC over in the booth, and that's a K and a C. It's not Casey, it's K, letter C. Right next to me is Rob the Rocket. Hello, Rob.
Good day, Sven. We love you too. And when you say, I love your head, I'm not going to comment.
You sick man. Let's just get going. Before we get going, though, I want to say we've got everyone checked in on TikTok and Facebook and YouTube. We've got questions flying at us, but someone made a comment before we even get started, and this woman says that she was born at Swedish Hospital in Minneapolis, so she's real old school here. But she makes this comment. She says, Sven, you're the MacGyver of mental health. Oh.
Wow. You can make something out of nothing. I guess that's what that means.
I like that one. Thank you. All right, folks, let's get going. Here we go. Severe over on TikTok says, have any advice for people with low self-esteem? Yes. The problem with low self-esteem, or the problem with anytime you're sort of fighting against yourself. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you got to do positive messages and do gratitude lists and those sorts of things. I'm all for positive messages, having positive mantras you tell yourself and doing gratitude lists. I'm all for them. But in the end, if you're trying to convince yourself of how good you are or how good your life is, you're working against yourself. It's like having one foot on the accelerator and one foot on the brake. And no amount of positive messaging is going to make that negative messaging that you're fighting go away. You have to fundamentally go inside and get that negative messaging out. You have low self-esteem because you were taught that you're shit. You are taught that you're not wanted, not wantable, not loved, not lovable, not good enough, that who you are doesn't matter, who you really are doesn't matter, or that you're expected to be someone other than who you really are. You've been criticized your whole life. And those messages, any of those messages, are inside of you, and they are undermining what is a person's natural belief in themselves. The child is born naturally believing in him or herself. So if they don't get that belief in self affirmed, or if they get messages undermining that self-belief, then they will begin to doubt themselves. They will begin to not have self-confidence, and they'll begin to loathe themselves. And that's where you're at. Whether, I don't know what your age is here, Severe, but it doesn't matter. And so what you have to do is the deliberate work of going inside and excising, cutting out, pulling out those messages that are undermining you, that are the foot on the brake, right? And that's what I wrote the book for. There's a Hole in My Love Cup. All right, next question, which, by the way, you can get at badasscounseling.com. All right, here we go. Morgan on Facebook asked the question, wondering why I'm not feeling same about my dad passing is not affecting me like my mom's. I was devastated. Okay, punctuation. As some of you may know, I've studied 5 different languages. You know, as part of being a former pastor, you have to study a lot of languages. Plus, I just enjoyed studying languages and etymology and stuff. And I'd study Hebrew and Latin and Greek, both ancient Greek and Koine Greek. And in ancient Greek, there was no punctuation. Okay, so it's a little tricky language, and so you can get sort of clever in your creating of theology depending on where you put the punctuation, right? Morgan's forcing me to call on my Greek resources here and put punctuation in for myself. So give me a second.
Can I try? I think Dad's passing didn't bother me like Mom's did.
Okay, there it is. Who needs Greek? I just got robbed. All right. My dad is in the hospital, and it's not looking positive. So why am I not feeling the same way about Dad's passing? It's not affecting me like Mom's. Okay. A number of things. Both my parents passed during COVID, not because of COVID, but they were in their early to mid 90s. Okay. I had been, for me personally, this is one scenario. I had been seeing their passing coming for about a decade, and I had sort of done a pre-passing or a pre-grieving. And in my journaling, in my own self-work, and I was looking at what's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? What am I going to miss the most? What's going to be the saddest part? What's going to be the best part? Silly as that may sound, but I explore those questions. I explore everything in my own journaling and my own self-work. Why? Because it's kind of just how my brain runs, and it's fun. So I was grieving in advance. So once they died, and my girlfriend even said to me, it's like, Sven, you don't seem to be crying a lot or whatever. I said, well, a little bit, but I've been doing it for a long time. So it could partly be that, Morgan, or it could also be, Morgan, she's wondering why she's not grieving her father's imminent passing as much as she grieved her mother's. It could be you're just not as close. You just don't have the feelings for your father that you had for your mother. It could be you're just not as close to him as you were. So that's the second scenario. And that may be a little hard to face. Wow, I realize I'm just not as close. Or I don't love dad as much as I love mom. That's a possibility. And that can be a tough one to face. But then if you really want to do your own healing work, then it's like, well, why? What is it from my past that causes me to not love dad as much or not feel as much affect towards dad as I feel towards mom? See, now we're getting into deep work. Do you see how these are deeper questions, folks? Okay. If someone were to ask you that, on a plane or at a party, you'd be like, whoa, that's deep. Exactly. But now you're asking it of yourself. This is what it means to go deeper into yourself. Ask yourself these fucking questions. But there's a third possibility, Morgan. You're wondering why you're not feeling the same about your dad passing as you are about your mom passing. The third one is you actually are closer to your dad. You actually do love him, maybe even more than your mom. But it's so scary and all the pain and all the sadness that you've packed it down and you don't want to motherfucking touch it. Why? Too scary. Too painful. So that's up to you. I really can't answer that one for you. You've got to explore those. And all you can do, Morgan, is just be honest. At some point in your life, you have to be truthful about what you're really feeling, all things. And this is all of us. But regarding the passing of your parents, you got to ask yourself in your journaling, you need to be writing all this out. Don't just do this shit in your head. Folks, mental health, soul health isn't about shit you do in your head. You've got to be flushing it out of you. Why? Because when it's out of you and you're reading it, it looks completely different. When I have people write the autobiography before I ever counsel with them, the first question I always ask them is, or one of them is, what was the autobiography experience like for them? And for many people, it's very, very hard. Not just the writing of it, but then looking at it and realizing, Jesus, that's my fucking life. Fuck. Or the writing of it and seeing it as they're writing it or whatever. And so you have to do the writing. That's why I so emphasize journaling. And I'm not the first person to ever do it. People have been recommending that for millennia, decades at least. It's a great fucking tool. All right. All right. Next question. All right. Michelle W. asked this question, and it's a great setup for a separate issue. Michelle W. on TikTok says, what do you think about antidepressants? I needed them after my dad passed. This is a great setup for the question or the statement. I am not a psychologist. I have nothing to do with the medical field. I have nothing to do with psychology. And I love it when people bring up stuff like this, or what do you think about, NPHD or CPLTQ or whatever. And this is a great opportunity for me to remind you people, I am not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a licensed medical therapist of any sort whatsoever. I am a soul counselor, former clergyman. I have been an emergency room chaplain at a level 1 trauma center. I've also done prison chaplaincy. I was a pastor for many years, and I have had a soul counseling practice for 30 years. I do not deal with medicine, and I stay in my motherfucking lane. So what do I think about antidepressants? I've used them at one point in my life when I committed suicide. I was on an antidepressant. Then they put me on a sedative and carved out a big chunk of my speed of my memory. But if it helps you, fantastic. I mean, that's between you and your psychologist. If it doesn't help you, don't do it. Whatever. I don't touch that. All right. Rob, have you got one for me?
Yeah, I've got a great one here, Sven. It refers back to the MacGyver thing.
Yes.
Flaxy says on YouTube, my head is a junk drawer at this point, and only MacGyver could build anything out of it.
Who says that, Maxie?
That was Flaxy.
Flaxy, I guarantee you. Yeah, you may have a lot of crud in there, Flaxy, but what's really in there is your wonderful, authentic self. And all you got to do is clear that shit out. And it's easier than you think. It doesn't, I mean, it's scary, but it's easier than you think, and it doesn't have to take a long time. You can do this shit. I guarantee it. And most of it just it just requires the courage to go into it. You can do it, Flaxy. And again, that's why I wrote the book. There's a hole in my love cup. All right? You need to read the book. All right. Still smiling, asked the question, Sven, basically the pre-question is, as a former clergyman, he asks, are you still religious? I'm not, really. I go at Christmas time because I love singing the songs. Occasionally I'll go during the year because I love the music. I love the vibe of a good religious worship space, whether it's Jewish or Hindu or Christian, usually Christian. I still have plenty of clergy that I counsel. I've got imams that I counsel. I have rabbis that I counsel, pastors, bishops, as well as people in the medical field. I have clients who are psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors and shit. But am I religious? No. My first book came out. It was titled Spiritual But Not Religious. I was the first author to name and delineate the spiritual but not religious movement in the world, really, but especially in the United States. You can go on Wikipedia and look up spiritual but not religious. My name's right there. You can do it right now if you like. But religion is a huge part of my life. Dad was a pastor. Mom was a director of Christian education at some massive churches, taught at the graduate level. I've lectured at the graduate level at the largest Lutheran seminary in the world in the field of early childhood spiritual development. And I see great value in religion. Don't get me wrong. When religion is done well, it's a profoundly great thing. I'm a huge believer in religion, just not for me. That's all. All right, next question. Here it is. I like this one. Healing Grace says, I'm struggling to forgive my parents for their past mistakes and decisions with me. It's hard to let go. Okay, this, guys, is really, really good. I'm glad Healing Grace brought this up. This is great. I want to read this to you again. I'm struggling. This is Healing Grace on TikTok. She says, I'm struggling to forgive my parents of their past mistakes and decisions with me. It's hard to let go. Healing Grace, you just brought up two different things. You brought up forgiveness and let go. Which do you want? Because you speak of them as if they are synonymous or both are required or they go hand in hand. Okay. Forgiveness is a very, very important thing, particularly as a former clergyman. Okay. Forgiveness is right in my wheelhouse, right? As a former Lutheran pastor of, almost 20 years, off and on for 20 years. Okay. The biggest mistake, when I was writing my book, Badass Wisdom, it came out just over a year ago. It's a 365-day daily meditational. When I was writing Badass Wisdom, one of the days I did it's a daily meditational, just a different inspirational thought every day with journaling questions. And when I was doing the one on forgiveness, I was struggling to find a quote that supported how I look at forgiveness. And I looked up forgiveness quotes from Gandhi to Martin Luther King Jr., from Carl Jung to Mr. Rogers. All right. Literally, I could not find one single person, no lie, this is honest God truth, and you can do Google searches up the wazoo and to confirm it or deny what I'm saying. I could not find one single person who agreed with what I say about forgiveness. But I'm going to say what I'm about to say anyway, because I absolutely believe it with every fiber of my being. I am coming to you now speaking as a former pastor and as a person who has had a 30-year counseling practice. You do not, now listen very, very, very closely. Don't hear what you think I'm saying. Hear what I am saying. You do not have to forgive in order to move on. That's point one. Point two, the single biggest mistake people make when forgiving is they forgive too soon. Third, if you forgive without clearing out the crud, the forgiveness won't mean shit. Let me tell you what happens. Basically, and I'm going to do it very, very quickly, super fast talk here, all right? Put on your fast ears. When forgiveness is necessary, it's because a breach has happened in a relationship. Something has happened that has pulled two people apart. And if I'm Susie, and now I forgive Tommy for what Tommy did, sure, guess what that effect has? It has the effect of making Tommy feel better. It removes his culpability and potentially it repairs the breach. But if I haven't gotten my own pain out of me that Tommy caused me, then even that repair to the breach isn't fully authentic because I'm not fully in it. Because deep down inside of me, I'm still hurting and maybe angry at Tommy for what he did. So therefore, quote unquote, forgiving or saying I forgive, all that does when people say, oh, you don't forgive for the other person, you forgive for yourself. No, it doesn't work that way. You can still forgive them, but you have to wait. Why? Because you have to get your own pain and anger out. Just saying you forgive them doesn't get your pain, sadness, anger, frustration, betrayal out of you. It doesn't make the feelings go away. You have to get all of your stuff out and then you can forgive. But if you forgive before you get it out, all you're doing is you're stuffing all those feelings down deeper. And I guarantee you, as sure as a motherfucker, those feelings will bite you in the ass later. Do you know how many people I get coming to me, counseling, friends, acquaintances, coming to me saying, well, I forgave my parents. Why am I still mad at them? Exactly. Thank you. You just made my point. Exactly. And so the point is, I'm not opposed to forgiving. I'm all for forgiving. I love the mending of relationships. It's a beautiful thing. People say, Sven, why are you always trying to destroy families and telling people to rip apart marriages and walk away from their parents? I'm not opposed to mending. I love mending of relationships. But the bottom line is, fucking hell, if somebody's done you wrong for so long, keeps doing you wrong, why the fuck would you keep licking their ass trying to get them to love you, for one? But two, why would you forgive someone if you haven't gotten the pain out of you? It is going to bite you in the ass later. So, Healing Grace, I'm struggling to forgive my parents. Just put Healing Grace, put forgiveness on the back burner, all right? Put letting go on the back burner. And just go inside yourself and start journaling the fuck out of it. Write your parents letters with all that you don't send. I mean, you can if you want, but if you're just trying to heal, you don't need to send the letter. All right? If you're trying to let go of them, you don't need to send the letter. What you need to do is write them letters and say, you motherfuckers, God damn it, I'm so mad at you, blah, 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 or you're so disappointed in me. I feel so betrayed by you. Flush out all your feelings and keep flushing and flushing and flushing. You want to know what will happen? Magically. This is no shit, Healing Grace. What'll happen is you'll begin to feel lighter. You begin to feel less animus. You'll begin to feel less pain, less sadness, less anger. And all those feelings that you have float away. That's how it works. That sounds maybe hokey to you, but that's how it fucking works. I guarantee you, what's keeping you so charged up and unable to forgive or unable to let go is you're still holding on. And so what we need to do is hold on even tighter. And you hold on tighter by going into all of those feelings, feeling them and giving them a point of egress. That's what their journaling is. That's what the letter writing is for. Talking it out with your favorite auntie or with your therapist. But you can do it all on your own with your journaling. Flushing, flushing, flushing. And then eventually it's gone. Next question. You got one, Rob?
Yes, Sven, on YouTube, I have Brandon who says, I'm about 4 months into cutting myself off from my parents, which has made most other families distance themselves from me. I have support from my fiance's family, but I'm grieving the loss of my own. Any tips?
Brandon, is it?
Brandon, yes.
Brandon. Yeah, you have to understand that whenever you're considering cutting yourself off from your family or cutting your family off from you is really how you should look at it. They should be privileged to have you in the family. That they're going to turn against you. Why? Brandon, they're afraid of you. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about, old man? They're afraid of you. You want to know why they're afraid of you? Because you possess a truth that they don't want to hear. And the truths that you possess are the things that they have done to hurt you and perhaps hurt others in the family or outside of the family. And they don't want your truth. They reject your truth, and they have to reject your truth because if they allow your truth to get oxygen and that fire to grow, it exposes them for being dicks. It exposes them for the pain they cause. It forces them to look at their humanity, and they're not always the hero. Okay? And so they don't want you to speak. They want to silence you. They have to ostracize you. Remember, people, family narratives, the family myth exists to protect the person or persons at the top of the food chain. And that's who benefits from the people believing, oh, mom's the best, or dad had such a hard childhood, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that story exists to protect the person at the top of the food chain. And whoever's at the top of the food chain will employ people at lower down on the food chain to turn against you. Why? Because you are a threat to their power. You are basically a usurper. Okay? And furthermore, those people lower down on the food chain are happy to engage in protecting the king or protecting the queen. Why? Because they don't want the king or the queen turning on them. So they're going to shut you the fuck down because you actually have the power, Brandon. I know that sounds insane. You have the power because you possess the truth. They are terrified of your power. They're not aware of it, but that's exactly what they fear. Your power being coming out in your story. And so they will do everything to push you away. And it hurts, doesn't it, Brandon? It hurts to be ostracized by your own family. And all you've ever wanted is to be close to your family. All you've ever wanted is to be loved and to give love to your family, and to be rejected by those people who reject your truth, who don't want you, who don't want to acknowledge the pain you cause. Hurts in ways that if you've never been through it, you can't imagine. And Brandon, what you have to do is flush all those feelings out, and you have to have the courage to go your path. In the end, it's a tragic, tragic thing, but in the end, we have to save ourselves. If those that we love don't want to love us. And just for the record, folks, I just posted this week a post, actually yesterday, day before, on that moment, or recently, that moment when you realize that myth you've been taught that family is everything, when you realize that you thought it was everything, but then you realize they don't see you as family as everything, that you're not everything to them, and the tragic heartbreak of that moment. Much more to come, fine people, right after this short break. Are you longing to feel connected and not so alone? Longing to be happy and more alive? Badass Counseling is excited to announce the creation of Community Plus, a subscription-based private group of folks just wanting to more closely share their soul journey together with like-minded folks and with me, Sven. For a monthly fee, you'll get bi-monthly live Q&As with me, Sven, giving you a better chance of getting your own questions answered. A private community feed for you to post pictures, successes, struggles, joys, even the occasional cat picture, creating greater connection and help for healing and growth. Random drawings for free small group sessions and drawings for private coaching sessions with me. Priority access to becoming a guest on the Badass Counseling Show podcast. Unlimited access to my DIY video courses, Healing the Soul and Unleashing Your Greatness. And so much more. Community Plus is for people serious about their soul journey who want real growth, real help, real laughter, real connection, and true community. Join us now at badasscounseling.com.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform, and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
Hi, guys. It's great to be back. Here we go. Megan Blaha, interesting name, says, I want to disassociate from my adoptive family. My parents are codependent on my criminal druggy siblings. Am I the bad guy? Are you the bad guy for wanting to disassociate from people that you don't want to be around? No, you're a person who has the courage to hear your own voice and act on it. One of the phrases that comes up in my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, and also my book, Badass Wisdom, which parenthetically you can get on the website, badasscounseling.com. One of the phrases I tell people all the time is that the path to discovering who you are requires discovering who you're not. That requires the courage to try things and quit. Paths, purposes, plans, people, possessions. And so what you found, Megan, in your life is something that is no longer you. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't sync up with who you are down in your soul. And this is the beginning of sort of differentiation, of you defining yourself. I am different from them. I am not them anymore. This is a process normally that happens when a kid is 12, 13. They begin to differentiate themselves from their family of origin. Not that they cut them off or you're all bad. No, it's just that, or from their mom. I'm like my mom in this way, but I'm different in these ways. They begin to carve themselves out. There's a sculpture. You can actually Google it, but I don't know if the original sculpture is in Northeast Minneapolis or if that's a replica sculpture. But there's a sculpture in Northeast Minneapolis in the St. Anthony, Maine area. Those of you from Minneapolis, Johnson, you know what I'm talking about. In Northeast Minneapolis, right in St. Anthony, Maine, and the title of the sculpture is The Entrepreneur. In fact, you can Google the sculpture right now, and it's very cool. It's a bronze sculpture of a man. Muscled man with an axe or a sledge carving himself out of the rock. The title is The Entrepreneur. That the entrepreneur carves himself out of rock. And it's a beautiful thing. Well, that's what you're doing, Megan. You are carving yourself out of the rock that was your adoptive family. By cutting them off, you are self-defining. Are you the bad guy? Not even close. You're finally finding yourself. That's a courageous act. I applaud you 100%. Go for it. Knock yourself out. This is good. This is good. This is good. All right. And by the way, you need to be journaling out all your guilt. You obviously have guilt and anger and sadness and all the other feelings you feel. All right. Next question is from All the Things 2.0 on TikTok. What do I do if my husband always wants me to make all the decisions in our family? Okay, first of all, you obviously don't like making all the decisions in your family. I know this is going to sound insane to you, all right, but I'm serious. She asks, what do I do if my husband always wants me to make all the decisions in our family? Stop. Stop. Or make half of them. Half of them. And then don't make the other half. I'm serious. Well, then nothing will happen. Exactly. See, the thing is, you guys have heard me say this before, people won't change. People only change when the pain gets bad enough. Change won't occur until the pain gets bad enough, right? So if there's no incentive to change, if there's no pain point, your husband's not going to fucking change. Why would I? You're doing all the work. Fuck it. Why would I do some work? Why would I make any decisions? Fuck that shit. You make some decisions. And some people are afraid to make decisions. I was dating a gal. You want to hear an embarrassing, really humiliating moment of mine? I was engaged to a girl. I mean, looking back, she was a young woman, but back then, looking back, she was a girl. I was a boy. I was about 21. And not my first wife, who I married when I was 23. I was like 21, 22. And we were dating, and we were engaged, and I said something bad. Because I was dating her, and it's like, I made all the decisions. So I know exactly what you're talking about, to the woman who asked this question on TikTok. And I said, and it was cruel and it was bad. And this is one of those things I look back and it's just like, that was mean. I should have chosen different language. But I said, you don't ever give your opinion. It's like dating my shoe. And I'm embarrassed, and that was a mean thing to say. And I wasn't trying to be mean, but it was mean in retrospect. And that was bad. And that was bad. And I later apologized for it. But I get it. When someone doesn't step up, you want someone who's an equal or at least an active player in the relationship. Some people don't like to contribute because they're fearful you won't want to do what I want to do. Or some people, it's like they just always want you to be happy. I want you to be happy. I want you to be happy. But that's not an authentic relationship. And so we have to each be willing to give and take. But the truth is, the only time, to the woman who asked this question, the only time she says, what do I do if my husband always wants me to make all the decisions in the family? You have to stop making them all. Otherwise, he'll have no incentive to change.
You may feel like you're dating your shoe, but maybe your shoe needed soul counseling.
You were working on that one, weren't you? You were cooking that one up.
It came to me in a bad dream one day.
All right. Well played, Rob. Kat Rowan says on Facebook, Sven and Rob, Clue Meow YouTube. It literally says Clue Meow YouTube. Can either of you send me the link to the group and website, please? Sven was talking about. It's badasscounseling.com. That's the website. Okay. The group on Facebook is Badass Counseling Group on Facebook. The smaller group is Community Plus on Badass Counseling. If you're ever wondering where I am, people, just type Badass Counseling in. I'm Badass Counseling everywhere. I literally have no imagination. I chose one name and I went with it. Next question. All right, here we go. How do you deal with extreme takers at work? They are so draining. I don't think I can deal with them whilst also going through the divorce. You know, Lauren, you actually gave your answer to your question. You answered your own question. You said, how do you deal with extreme takers at work? They are so draining. I don't think I can deal with them while also going through a divorce. Exactly. You answered it. Don't deal with them. The thing, when you have people who are draining, like the person who said earlier, I got to cut myself off from my family. Am I a bad person? No. This is it, people. This is... we try to be good in this world and we try to be an instrument of light and love in the world. But if we've got somebody who's taking, or someone who's always draining, or someone who's always needy, or someone who's always being a jerk, you have every right to walk away. This is what's called boundaries, right? You have every right to protect yourself. Not only a right, you have a responsibility. Because think about it, the people you want to give love to. So in your case, if you're going through a divorce and let's say you have children, do you feel you have a greater responsibility to that person at work who's draining, or a greater responsibility to your children? Because the energy you're giving to that person at work is energy you're not going to be able to give to your kids. It's like, oh, well, fuck, you put it fucking that way. Yeah. Then it's easy. Yeah. So you need to give yourself permission to walk away, or excuse yourself from conversations, or just focus on work at work. Or even if you don't have children, the energy you're giving to that person at work is energy you're not giving to yourself. And folks, when you're going through the hard times in life, you have to prioritize your own health. I just had a new client yesterday. We did a 6-hour session. Standard opening session, 6 hours. And at the end of it, I said to this young man, I said, dude, we covered a lot of ground today, and you need to go easy on yourself for the next couple of days. We overturned a lot of rocks, found a lot of deeper truths, a lot of heavy shit, a lot of tears, a lot of rage today. Just go easy on yourself for the next couple of days. Well, the reason I tell people that is because when you're going through a hard time, whether you're grieving a death or whether you're anticipating, some major event coming up, a major court case or whatever it might be, you've got to tend to your own health. And that means your physical health, like getting sleep, giving yourself rest, eating healthy, getting exercise. But you've also got to tend to your own inner soul health. You've got to be journaling. You got to be talking out your shit with people you trust, all right, who are good listeners. All right. Leslie Suko gets a little salty by saying, Sven is extra salty today, and I'm loving it. Oh, throwing me some shade, are you? But she likes the shade, I guess.
It's a good sign.
I guess it is. Well, thank you. Erica Greer-Blank, who is a regular listener, good to see you, Erica, says, letting go of my mother was actually a relief. Isn't that interesting, folks? And that's one of the things when I get into counseling with folks and we really get down into the deepest shit, the ugliest shit, like helping someone see they say, oh, my mom didn't know how to love me, or my dad, he did his best or something like that. I'll say, didn't know how. And then we go through things and they realize your mom did know how. She just chose not to. Or your dad actually didn't do the best, or some other ugly truth. And we look at it, and in a weird way, those ugly things in some strange way actually are a relief. Or when they get out their anger and their rage, even though they feel a bit of guilt, they also feel relief. And you know what that is? Do you know why we feel relief when it's a hard truth, or when we let out these strong, powerful emotions that we've never let ourselves touch? It's because you're finally being fucking authentic. If it brings relief, it's your authentic self. If it's your authentic self, it brings relief, or it brings invigoration. Makes you feel lighter. All right? So that's kick-ass, Erica. I love that. All right. Biker Mama, 23, going with the Michael Jordan number there, says, how do you learn to just accept yourself and love yourself where you are? You don't. Nope, you don't just say, okay, I got to love myself. I got to love myself. We sort of talked about this earlier. The reason you can't accept yourself and you can't love yourself is you have messages inside of you saying, you suck, you suck, you suck. You're not good enough. You're unlovable. You're unwantable. You're no good. You have to get those messages out. See, your authentic self and authentic self-love is already inside of you. You don't have to put anything in. It's inside of you. That means something is blocking it. There's something packed on top of it, like in the northern states of the U.S., the far north, Minnesota, North Dakota, that you get the leaves falling in the fall, and then more leaves fall. You can rake the fuck out of them, but I guarantee you by mid to late November, you're still going to get more leaves. And you're like, fuck that shit. I'm not raking those. And then the snow comes and the rains come and more snow and then the ice and mud and all this shit and blah, blah, blah. Well, then in spring, you got to go out and rake your fucking garden. You got to rake all that shit off of there. Why? Because the flowers can't grow up if you don't rake out all that crud. But when you try to rake leaves in like March that have the mud and the ice and the fucking, and it's wet, it's heavy. And then you try to bag it. It's just like, oh, what a pain in the ass, right? And that's why we have children, to make them do it. Anyway, sorry, didn't say that. Rob said that. Anyway, so you got to rake that. But then what happens when you remove that heavy pack? What happens? The tulips, the jonquils, the daffodils, the peonies, the lilies of the valley, the irises, they all grow up effortlessly. And that's what's going on with you, Biker Mama. That self-love is in you, but what's packed on it is all those negative messaging. BS beliefs you were taught about yourself. That's why you need to read the book. There's a hole in my love cup. It will literally walk you through the process of removing the pack, so to speak. It's available as audiobook, ebook, paperback, Spanish, workbook. We've got French versions coming out, etc. All right.
Sven, over on YouTube, we have Silver Mist, who says, I'm afraid of being happy. Every time I start to feel like life is getting better, another tragedy hits. Where do I find the motivation to heal when new shit keeps piling up?
Yeah, this was an eye opener for me when I learned about this phenomenon over the years of counseling. It's something Happy Mist. What's this person's name?
Silver Mist.
Silver Mist. Have you ever heard of this? And I've done some videos on this. For those of you who have never heard of this, that there are people who are afraid to be happy. There are people who are afraid of success. Okay, and what those have in common, I had a client once many years ago who had grown up and in a home where her mother and her brother, every time as a little girl that she was happy, her mother and her brother would team up and mock her, undermine her. If she won the spelling bee at school, they would say, their brother would say things like, what, was it just all dumb kids that you were with? Or her mom would say, yeah, but I'm sure the teacher didn't give you any hard words. In other words, every time she felt good about herself, they would do everything in their power to make her feel bad about herself or to undermine her successes. And so what she began to equate, so what happens? She began to equate happiness with pain. Isn't that interesting? So then what are you going to do if you equate happiness with pain? What are you going to do then as you move into your teen years and as you move into your 20s and your 40s and your 60s? You're going to do anything that equates with happiness. And it sounds insane on one hand, but it's perfectly logical. And so Silver Mist is saying fundamentally, what then? How do I get past this, Rob?
How do I find the motivation to heal when new shit keeps piling up?
Well, and that's just it, that at some point, the motivation to heal from anything only comes when the pain gets bad enough. So that pile up, I don't doubt that you've had a lot of crud put in your love cup. I don't doubt that for 1 second, Silver Mist. You wouldn't be in this state. But has the pain gotten bad enough? Change will not occur until the pain gets bad enough. Have you reached the fuck it point yet where the pain is so fucking bad, it's like, I don't even fucking care anymore. I got to do this work, right? I had a fella come to me a couple of weeks ago and he said, Sven, my husband is gay gentleman. He says, my husband's been writing me to come and counsel with you. But I'm like, oh, he's so expensive. He's so expensive. My husband said, really? You spend all that money on your car. You spend all this money on new furniture, but you won't spend it on your own fucking mental health. And I realized my husband was right. So here I am. And so, but the pain has to get bad enough. Has your pain gotten bad enough? And at some point you dive in. There's an old line from Joseph Campbell. He said, if you're a plumber on the Titanic, what do? You bail water because that's what plumbers do, right? At some point you have to dive into your love cup and start doing the work of getting it out of there. And if you want the accelerated path, you can counsel with me, but why not just get the fucking book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, because it'll walk you through that fucking process, but you have to go in there because the truth is until you get all that crud out of there, you are going to run away from happy things. You are going to run away from success because you fear them. And furthermore, the shit is going to keep piling up. And I know you can do it. All right. Next question.
I think Freud said if you're complaining about the money that's required for therapy, you're just avoiding your issues.
Yeah.
He was a bit of a businessman, but still.
Yeah, no, for sure. Here we go. Listen, and to that point, Missy Wolf and the Howlers. Great name. You're like a walking band, Missy. I love that. What a great name. Missy Wolf and the Howlers over on TikTok.
Josie and the Pussycats.
And the Pussycats. I love it. Speed Buggy. All right. And Missy Wolf and the Howlers says, I have your book and I have yet to read it. Secretly afraid of change. That's exactly it. And not just afraid of change, though, Missy Wolf and the Howlers. Afraid of going into all the shit. Afraid of feeling it all. Afraid of facing not just the pain and all the overwhelming feelings, but the implications, the truths. Fuck, I've been alone the whole time. Or fuck, my dad really doesn't love me. Or you know what? Jeepers creepers, this truth or that truth. And that means I really need to pull away from this person, whatever it is. It's scary stuff. And I hear that all the time, Missy, for what it's worth. I hear people saying all the time, Sven, I waited a year before I bought your book. Or Sven, I bought your book and it's been sitting on my bedside stand, not because I don't have time, because I'm scared. Or I read the introduction and I'm terrified to go back. So don't feel bad. You're not alone. All right. Mark Smith, commenting on something I said earlier, says, I know therapists aren't supposed to dispense advice, and I understand they couldn't say things like divorce your wife or take that new job. But it's good to hear realities like the head of the family you're leaving will employ lower members to do a job that protects him. Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's the beauty of me not being a psychologist. I'm a soul counselor, all right? I answer to fundamentally the voice of God or the gods or the universe inside of you. I'm trying to unleash that voice inside of you. And ultimately, as I tell all my clients, I'm not trying to push you to take any action. That's between you and your own inner voice. I'm simply trying to tell you what I see from where I'm sitting. All right. But your action choices are completely up to you. And I support you 100%. As long as you are not, doing illegal things, I support you 100%. All right. Next question. All right. Here we go. Mrs. Potter on TikTok says, how do I help a man who is emotionally immature and distant, avoidant, and won't see it or change? Okay. All right. I'm going to read it one more time. Mrs. Potter says, how do I help a man who is emotionally immature and distant, avoidant, and won't see it or change? Mrs. Potter, the question I want to ask you is, you use the word, how do I help? Isn't what you're really saying, how do I change a man who is emotionally immature, distant, avoidant, and won't see it or change? The mere fact that you end it with change says you don't want to help him. You want to change him, right? Would that be safe to say? I mean, sure, you think, oh, for his own sake, I want to help him. But isn't it really you want him changed so that he'll be more present to you? He'll be emotionally mature for you in the relationship. Aren't you fundamentally saying that I'm not getting my needs met in this relationship and I want him to meet my needs? And that's a totally legitimate thing to want in a relationship. There's no fucking way in hell I would be in a relationship with any woman in terms of a love relationship, because I'm more or less straight, or any friendships like with Rob or KC or any of my buddies, or there's no way I would have in a relationship with anybody if they were emotionally immature. I'll work with people in my work, but I'm getting paid for that, or I'm doing volunteer work. And so I'm happy to do that, right? And the payback for me is either the paycheck or just the knowledge that I'm helping people in this world. So I don't mind interacting with emotionally immature people, but I'm not going to have a fucking relationship with that. No fucking way. So you wanting that is totally normal. It's totally fine. You get to decide who's in your life, and you say the person is distant, avoidant, and won't see it or change, right? You want this person to change, and they are not changing. And so the question becomes, I think you're asking the wrong question, Mrs. Potter. The question you need to be asking is, why the fuck am I staying in a relationship with someone who has no interest in changing to meet my needs? And that's not an unreasonable request. Wanting emotional maturity, wanting greater connection, emotional connection in a relationship is a reasonable request. All right? And so you're wanting someone to change and they don't want to change. So at this point, aren't you in fact being forceful and unreasonable at the point where they say, no, I don't want to change? Don't you at that point have to respect their wants? Now, I know you want him to change. You may like him. Maybe he has a cute butt. Maybe he's very funny and intelligent and you enjoy that. Maybe he's a million things, or maybe whatever. But the bottom line is he doesn't want to change and you want him to change. And he's saying no. And technically he doesn't have to change. You may want him to change and that's perfectly legitimate. But his not wanting to change is perfectly legitimate too. I'm not trying to be a dick. I mean this very seriously. I don't have to change just because someone wants me to. And he's saying no. And you have to honor that. But that also means for your own health, your own sake, your own life, your own happiness, you need, if we're being really honest, if he says no, he's not going to change, but you really need him to change in order for you to be happy in this relationship, you have to walk away. I don't see how there's any other option, right? And again, I'm not trying to be a jerk. It just seems tragic that, he's not willing to open up. But on the other hand, it seems tragic that you're so wanting him to change and you realize, and it sucks. It sucks to have to walk away from relationships. But, do it gracefully, but yet boldly and firmly, and do what you got to do. And that's a tough message to get. I hear you, but sometimes we got to make the hard decision. All right. Charlie Stone then follows up with, well, what about someone you are married to? Well, that adds a new wrinkle, doesn't it? And this is where we dig deep. And this is a little trickier one. Am I in favor of keeping marriages together? Absolutely. Absolutely. But if you go to my website and read the counseling page on my website, I have special rules when I'm dealing with couples, People reach out to me all the time. Can I do couples counseling with me? And my assistant, Kate, says you got to go read the counseling page first, specifically the part where he talks about where it's written up how Sven deals with couples. Because I never take couples together for the opening sessions. Never, never, never. Why? It's a flying shit show, clusterfuck shit everywhere. I don't want to walk in the middle of that shit. He said, she said, fuck you. Like, I want to deal with that. Fuck you. It never goes anywhere. It never goes anywhere. No, I take two individuals separately. Listen up here, folks. This is how I do it. Is it the only way? No. Is it the best way? I don't fucking know. I don't care. This is how I do it. When I'm dealing with, and this goes for families or friends or anytime I have more than one person, I always take them individually to start, whether it's first 2, 4, 6 sessions, whatever. And I take them individually. My goal is not to save your marriage. If we can save it, fantastic. But that's not my primary goal. My primary goal is to help two individuals become their most authentic self. And then for those two individuals to look at each other and decide, do I want to stay with you forever? Do I want to stay with you forever? And then decide. Because until you are your authentic self, you are making that decision from a self that is not authentic, that has been conditioned to be this other person. It's an adapted self. It's a persona. It's not your real self. So how the fuck can you decide if you want to be with someone forever if you don't even know who the fuck you are, right? So to your point, Charlie Stone asked the question, what about these issues? If you got someone who's emotionally mature, or you're married to someone who doesn't want to open up or is avoidant or whatever, and you're married. Yeah, that's a fucking tough wrinkle, isn't it? Because you got to decide, how important is this marriage? How important is my own individual needs and so forth? And people have different values, especially if you factor in religion, which is another issue for a lot of people. And as a former clergyman, who I still do the occasional wedding, I still do the occasional funeral. It's a big deal for a lot of people, understandably. And I think that's fantastic. God bless you. Go for it. But ultimately, when you say, what about someone you are married to? What life is forcing you to determine is, who are you really? What are your values? Do you have the courage to be who the fuck you really are? Even if you look bad, even if people disagree with you, even if people get mad at you, do you have the courage to be authentic? That's the question. All right. Unity Health asked the question. And just for the record, Unity Health was the name of the hospital in my hometown, Fridley, Minnesota. Unity Medical Center, Unity Hospital, Unity Health. All right. Anyway, I'm sure that's not who this is. But anyway, why do so many people not know what emotional intelligence is? Because when they growed up, they weren't taught that feelings matter. A lot of people weren't allowed to have feelings. A lot of people weren't taught that feelings matter. A lot of people grew up in homes where only the parents' feelings mattered, or the parents had no feelings and they were emotionally cut off. Or the one I see the most, though, is one or both parents' feelings were the only feelings that mattered. And so the child is taught your feelings don't fucking matter. Your voice doesn't matter. Your needs, your wants don't fucking matter. And so they grow up not being emotionally intelligent or just not being in touch with their own feelings. It's not a fault of their own in most cases. So not only do they not know what to do with feelings, or they diminish the importance of feelings, but they don't even have language for feelings, right? And so to begin that process can be very liberating, but also very hard. And one of the joys in my work, and I see this especially among a lot of men for obvious reasons, and older men, one of the delights is seeing some of these older guys really come in touch with their feelings and give themselves permission and realize that, as I call it, a real badass or a real man is a man who can be both tough and soft, kind and solid. And one of the things I like to tell people is that honesty and emotional awareness and the ability to have those conversations is a total fucking aphrodisiac for most women. A man who has the ability, a man going to counseling is a fucking aphrodisiac for a whole lot of women. A man who can have deep or emotional conversations, yet still has that firm, man side to him. A guy who's both, total fucking aphrodisiac for a lot of fucking women. Total turn on. And not even just in a sexual way, but it's like very fucking appealing. So all these guys doing the tough macho guy all the time, like they're one trick pony. It's just like, really? That's what a man is? You fucking moron. And we get these 35-year-old men telling 18-year-old boys that that's what a man is. It's like, oh, for the love of God. All right, next question. I'm going to take just a few more questions here. Kelly White Hubbard says, how do you feel about Enneagram? I was into Enneagrams back in seminary back in the early 90s. And it's cool. It's cool. If it helps you understand yourself, it's one more tool. It's like Myers-Briggs personality inventory, which of course is based on the seminal work of Carl Jung. Anything that helps you understand yourself and understand others better, that creates some sort of framework or language, I am all for. It's like when people say, oh, narcissist, that term's thrown around so much, it doesn't mean anything, it's bullshit. And on one hand, I totally fucking agree with you. But on the other hand, it's helping some people find language for their experience. And very often it's people who haven't been, to a prior person's comment, emotionally intelligent. So it's helping them find language for their experience. Well, how is that bad? That's a great fucking start. I'm all for that. All right, next question. Jeremy Barrett says, where's the dating app for those women? This is so funny. Jeremy, it's good to see you. Jeremy's a member of Community Plus. Great to have you here, Jeremy. Yeah. Do you know how many times, literally, Rob, I haven't told you this. Do you know how many fucking times one of our staff, either the production staff for the show or part of the Badass Counseling team, we get people saying, when are you going to start a dating app, Sven? Dating app, to the point where we're actually fucking playing with the idea. I don't see myself ever doing this. I mean, it's just like I haven't got enough fingers in enough pies.
Do you want to feel responsible for that?
No, I don't. But there's such a need out there for people who take soul health seriously, the soul journey seriously, and want to find other people who take the soul journey seriously, especially the folks in Community Plus and the Facebook group. People who take it seriously want other people who are emotionally sort of and soul advanced, which I get.
Maybe another online group that you set up that you're not responsible for, but people could try to meet each other on there.
And that's an idea we're playing with. We're playing with all sorts of stuff. Ostra Des Direct says, there is no need for counseling as a man to be real and have self-awareness. That's actually true. That's actually true. But if you're not doing self-work on yourself, you're not going to be self-aware. No fucking way. So there's got to be some type of work. You don't have to be in counseling, but I'm a huge advocate of self-help, journaling, letter writing, self-help books. Also, I've got tons of tools and exercises in my books. But if you're not doing some sort of self-work, the notion that you're self-aware is, no, it's fucking bullshit. You have to be doing some type of self-work. Otherwise, it's just, it's just words.
Did that person say for a man?
Yeah. Because I was talking about men earlier.
Oh, okay. It wasn't a sexist comment. Like women need it, but men don't.
No. He wasn't being sexist. He wasn't. Cool. No, I didn't take him being sexist at all. No. Right. This is a question I get. This is a side question. Ms. Ray says, do you take on students? I've had therapists and so forth reach out wanting to be licensed in in the Badass Counseling Method. I've had people wanting to work with me and so on and so forth. The only way I would ever, at least at this point, we've actually thought about starting a school. We've thought about it, which is in addition to a dating website. I mean, seriously, folks, it's just like, some days I just sit back and it's like, oh my God, where's the bottle of bourbon? This is just too much, right? And I've got a great team. Rob being the king of the team as far as the podcast, amazing. KC, the freeloader. I'm kidding. She's flipping me off. But the only way I would ever consider that is my method is not something you do. It's something you have to experience from the inside. The only way I would ever do it is for someone to counsel with me first and be worked from the inside. And then I would consider it. All right. Let's just take one or two more questions here.
Yeah, one.
All right.
Sven, you're fabulous, but I don't see you as a headmaster.
Oh, yeah. Put your palms out. I'm going to whip your palms.
That's
there.
What I'm seeing.
That's it. It's badass shit here, man. Here we go. This is one. Honestly, this is brand new. Never done this before. Janet Francois. Wait, you had one? We're going to do them both. Janet Francois, because this is a quickie. Son-in-law is addicted to chat AI. He is becoming psychotic, doesn't think he needs counseling. Ideas? Gosh, that's chat AI. This is all so fucking new. But someone becoming psychotic, having a family member dealing with mental illness is profoundly difficult. I have experienced that personally more than once with family member, and you need to begin to get help right away. And potentially you need to get your daughter safe if that's what it requires, but you do not wait on this. I would recommend reaching out to NAMI.org, NAMI.org for resources. Also begin to explore more on that. But this is something you don't wait around. If the person's, of course, they're not going to go into counseling because they probably don't think anything is wrong with them. That means you have to begin to put things in place for each of you to be in counseling so that you know how to address it as it gets worse. If you are not in counseling, if your daughter is not in counseling, that needs to happen now. Now. Rob, go ahead.
Sven, on YouTube, a familiar question, but it's extreme and because of the amount of time involved. Sandy asks, how do I break away from my extreme taker husband after 38 years? Where do I start?
What's the name, Sandy?
Yes.
How do you break away from your extreme taker husband? It's been 38 years. Sandy, first of all, I'm sorry that you've put in so much love and time and so forth, and that now it's ending. It's a profound loss. I have not had the experience of that. I've had divorce, but not 38 years. That's a whole different beast. First of all, regarding your own internal health, you need to begin, if you haven't already, you need either counseling, well, not either, counseling, but at the very least, journaling and writing letters to your husband, flushing out that you don't send, flushing out all your pain, all your sadness, all your grief, all your guilt, all your anger, all your betrayal, all your disappointment, all your frustration, on and on. And that needs to be an ongoing process. That needs to be basically daily, certainly weekly. Flushing and flushing and flushing. And the more you do that, the greater clarity you're going to have, the greater courage you're going to have, because you're getting all the crud that's blocking you and your own sense of self and your own courage as well. And then you start at the beginning. Do ye now the next thing. Take the first step. And whether that's going and talking to a lawyer, or more than one, and just getting the lay of the land. You got to start information gathering, Sandy. Just start information gathering. Now, maybe you've already done this, and maybe this wasn't the question you were asking. But gather information. You don't have to act yet. If you've gone 38 years, you can wait another month. You can wait another year if you have to. I know you don't want to, but the most important thing is where you begin is inside of yourself, because that's going to be the biggest obstacle. It's not the outside of yourself, because any kids you have, they're grown and gone. And possessions can always be split up, but it's your internal self. And that's why I recommend therapy, but I also recommend heavy journaling and heavy letter writing to flush out. It's all those feelings, all the anger, all the sadness, all the rage, everything. And get the book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, because that's going to help you on so many other levels, because you've got messages inside of yourself that you were taught about yourself that are also undermining you. And if you and I were in counseling right now, Sandy, I'd be asking you the question, when did you know? And you'd be like, what the fuck you talking about? And say, no, when did you know that it was done? Or when did you have the first inkling that I may need to get the fuck out of here? Because it wasn't yesterday, was it, Sandy? It wasn't last month, was it? Probably wasn't even last year. I'm betting it was probably, 10 years ago? 8? 16? When did you know? And you need to be journaling about that. But then you need to be journaling about, and what was my grand fear that kept me from acting on it then? Okay, this is how we go deeper. Folks, you need to be listening to this. This is what it means to go deeper in your own journaling, in your own self-work. So Sandy, then you go deeper. Well, why didn't I get out then? Or why, and not only why did I not get out then, what you need to ask yourself is, let's say it was 10 years ago, Sandy. You've been married 38 years. Now you know you want to get a divorce. And I would ask you, if we were in counseling together right now, I'd say, when did you know? When did you have an inkling that, oh shit, I think I need to get out of this divorce, or I'm so sick of this shit? And if it was 10 years ago, you want to know what my next question would be to you, Sandy? I'd ask you this question. Why 10 years? Why not 17 years? Or why not 4 years? Why 10? And what I'm trying to determine when I ask someone a question like that is, what was the event? And it wasn't one event, was it? It's never one event that causes somebody to get a divorce. It's a buildup. So things had been building, and then there was a tipping point. Then there was some event that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So then I'd want to know, what was the straw that broke the camel's back that caused you to see it so clearly? Okay. And that was a seminal moment. That was a bridge too far. But then I'd want to back up. But when did it start building? See, now we're going back even further than that 10 years. Well, shit, Sven, it was 8 years before that, the very first. And then Very often, folks, and this is where it gets really funky, and this is why I have long sessions, like 6-hour sessions and 4-hour sessions, so I can do this. And I'll go back and I'll say, but when did you first have an inkling that something's really fucked up in this relationship or with this person? And more often than not, no lie, it's before the wedding. More often than not, it was when they first started dating. They saw things or they sensed it and they let it go. Anyway, so the point is, Sandy, you have to begin and you have to dive in. Your most important thing in going through a divorce from a person for 38 years, the most important thing is what's going on inside of you in here. And you need to be flushing out. And the more you flush that out, the greater clarity you're going to have and the greater courage you're going to have. And that's so important. And I know you probably aren't even thinking about another relationship, but for you to be a different person in that new relationship, for you to be free and clean and lighter and healed, you have to do this inner work. Again, get the book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, at badasscounseling.com.
She says she knew 10 years ago.
There it is. How about that? All right. By the way, somebody says, I see there's a workbook for your book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. Is it worth it to get it with the new book? You don't have to get it. Just use pen and paper. The workbook reprints all of the questions in the book, but I added more questions to the workbook. See, there's more questions, but you don't have to have the workbook. It's just for people who like to have a workbook. That's all. All right, people. This has been super duper fantastic. I'm so happy for all your questions. We had a little glitch here or there, but everything got ironed out. Rob had a coughing attack. I don't know if you guys heard it, but he did survive.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Oh, come on. I have coughing attacks. Rob's always teasing me because right as he's bringing up my microphone, I used to do this far more. Like right as he's bringing up my microphone after he opens the show, I always go... I clear my throat because I'll have a sip of coffee and there's cream in there. And so it's a little stick in my throat. He's like, God damn it, Sven. He doesn't say God damn it, but he says, Sven, really? Really? Right as I'm bringing up your mic. So now I got to go edit that out or whatever. Or sometimes we have to restart it. So I like to needle him a little bit now and then.
I deserve it.
Oh, you don't deserve it. It's just fun to have fun.
I deserve it.
So, people, Casey is feeling good. She's got a big smile on her face, and I'm happy. Rob's happy. I hope there's some joy in your life today. We've got gray skies here in the New York City area, and I am looking out at a beautiful pond on a gray winter day, and yet there's still joy in the world, and I hope there's some joy in your life today. And if not, create some joy, find some joy, a little bit of laughter. What's going to make you laugh a little bit today? And can you spread a little laughter today? Well, I love you guys, all you badasses. It's great to have you here. This is the Badass Counseling Show. You can subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Audible, Apple, iHeartRadio, and all podcast sites. On behalf of my most excellent team, KC in the booth and Rob the Rocket, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.